Faruk Balıkçı getting ready to go live on air. The police and army have sealed off an area in the city of Diyarbakir. Shots are then heard. Reports emerge that a few dozen armed fighters from the banned Kurdish Workers' Party, or PKK, have holed up in the neighborhood. Suddenly, tear gas canisters are launched toward the reporter. Balıkçı has to stop the shoot. His employer, news broadcaster IMC, is the only station in the country that reports regularly on the fighting here in the Kurdish-majority southeast of the country.
We get tear gassed for doing our job. I'm constantly being prevented from reporting on events here.
Shortly afterwards, Balıkçı asks people on the street what they know about the gunfire and whether there have been civilian casualties. Frustration and resignation are increasingly widespread here.
Where are we supposed to go? The fighting moves from one neighborhood to the next, with us in the middle. All we can do is leave, or put up with the curfews.
Diyarbakir is the unofficial capital of Turkey's Kurdish heartland. For months now, many parts of the region have returned to conditions resembling civil war. Peace talks between the PKK and the Turkish government broke down last summer. The subsequent violence has seen tens of thousands of civilians displaced. Kurdish journalists are also coming under fire between the fronts. Faruk Balıkçı has been reporting from his native Diyarbakir for 25 years. It's been a long time since he can remember things being this bad for journalists.
Stations are routinely closed down and colleagues jailed. The government threw us off the Turkish satellite network. We've managed to find an alternative, but we don't know what awaits us tomorrow.
On the latest Press Freedom Index published by Reporters Without Borders, Turkey ranks at 149 out of 180 nations. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan personally leads a campaign of intimidation and incitement against non-compliant journalists. In this speech, he says critics of his policy on the Kurds are likewise terrorists, with shocking consequences for reporters. Today, Balıkçı is visiting his IMC colleague Refik Tekin, who's been off work sick since being shot 2 months ago. The cameraman was accompanying a delegation of Kurdish politicians in the war-torn city of Cizre. Although they waved white flags, they were targeted without warning. Tekin kept his camera running.
In that city, there was no violence between the two sides back then. So it wasn't as if we were caught in crossfire. The police deliberately shot at us because we're journalists. That's what you get when Kurdish journalists are depicted in the pro-government media as terrorists or enemies of the state. So why not kill them?
Faruk Balıkçı's next stop is a press conference for the pro-Kurdish HDP party, as always subject to plainclothes police surveillance. IMC is eager not to incur resentment from the other side of the conflict, a side they have sympathies with. The Kurdish nationalists are currently calling on Kurdish journalists to show solidarity with what they call the fight for liberation. Criticism of the PKK's armed struggle is not welcome.
There are no direct threats, but we do sometimes have to justify ourselves for our reports.
Turkish jails are currently home to several dozen journalists. Many are awaiting trial. Faruk Balıkçı's employer, news channel IMC, is under massive pressure from the government. But the reporter will not yield and will continue to cover the violence and human rights abuses in the Kurdish part of Turkey. Especially now, as the world begins to turn its attention elsewhere.